These three interior designers have been given a photograph of an empty A-frame cabin. They have free reign to design it in any way they please.
Hi, I'm Darren Jett, and my designs are atmospheric, immersive, and always full of life.
My name is Chiara, and my design style tends to be warm, modern.
My name is Jenny, and my design style is colorful, unique, and thoughtful.
No clients, no restrictions, just blank space.
I think that there's endless opportunity with an A-frame, and there's a lot going on here that I think takes away from that opportunity.
My first impressions of this A-frame is that it's actually so cool. I love the geometries, I love the wood, I love the warmth.
It's not that inspiring. It's just kind of your typical A-frame cabin. There's some natural elements, a lot of wood, and not a lot of light.
If I'm going to the country for the weekend, I would love to just be surrounded by nature and surrounded by light. So I think it might be cool to explore actually removing the wood that's in between the beams and perhaps replacing that with a material that's sort of translucent. Perhaps we could do something like a polycarbonate thermal glass. I think overall this is a very atmospheric material. It lends itself to something that's a bit more modern. You know, someone like Stephen Hall, who's a fantastic architect, has used this on a few museums. And if you go past one of these places at nighttime, it almost glows up like a lantern.
For the walls as they are here now, I am not comfortable with the asymmetry. I would want the drywall to carry up and be even on all sides. I would want something very reflective on the walls to bring in the light from outside. And I would love to see a lime wash finish on the plaster walls.
An easy way to brighten up the space is with paint. So rather than painting the space a singular color, I went for a few different shades of paint. And the idea was almost to like treat this A-frame as like an art gallery, kind of this like white box that was grounded in this like warm white color.
I kept thinking of like an alpine A-frame lodge, and I didn't want anything to feel too dark with the finishes or the surfaces. So I thought something light. This is actually more of a bleached pale European oak. I thought that would be really pretty and not feel so heavy.
I thought the beams just look really heavy, so we decided to whitewash the beams so they have like a similar tonality to the warm white Harvest Moon paint color that you see on the walls.
In this instance, I really wanted something fresh and clean and light and bright, and so I decided it would make more sense to have white plaster for the beams as well in the same finish as the walls. I just think that would be a cleaner backdrop for everything.
Right now the door just looks a little small, a little traditional. I really want to freshen this place up. You know, so I want to essentially create a more modern language and something that's just a little bit taller to let more light in. I think it would be really cool to actually have perhaps two doors, and maybe those are actually flanking the center of the cabin, and that would lead you outside to perhaps your patio, your pool, or your hot tub. It would also create a nice path of circulation.
So in this original room, they bring the drywall up so far, and then they finish it with the wood beams. And I think that's a bit awkward. I would want to get rid of it all, blow it out, and have it all be glass window. I'd really like to just take in a beautiful view and have this feel like a real alpine A-frame.
Right now, what I see on the floor, it looks to be a very short plank wood floor. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think what I see as a challenge in this space is how to make it feel a little bit more fresh. And what I would like to do is actually remove the wood flooring and put down concrete floor instead. I would pigment it to be a very warm color, and underneath it would allow us to actually have a radiant heat source so that when it's wintertime, everything is very cozy.
I would really love to bring in a beautiful reclaimed limestone in a light color. Limestone, of course, has a variation, but I would try to use a very creamy palette. And I think personally, I'd also try to do some radiant heat so that it doesn't feel too cold on the feet in the winter months.
So for the kitchen, I'm going with this hunter green tile by Fireclay. It has like a really nice matte finish. And I went with a square shape and carved out the flooring of the kitchen. And it was really important for me to bring in elements of nature. Since this is like an A-frame cabin, I'm imagining we're somewhere in the country, away from city life.
So on top of the concrete floor, I would love to have a rug of some sort that would just provide that extra sense of warmth and that extra sense of place. Perhaps we sort of lean into the cabin aesthetic a little bit. Let's not go too far overboard, but let's still have a little bit of fun. Perhaps we do something like a skin or a hide, something that's really soft to where if you're on a sofa or you're on a piece of furniture, but your friend is next to you and they're curled up by a fire reading a book, you're actually on something that's very soft and cozy.
So with the floors in the original rendering, it's kind of this like mid-tone wood, and I decided to strip the floors. So the floors just are an extension of the walls, and I'm just creating this like clean backdrop that's kind of like this gallery-esque space.
I love this kind of mossy green rug. It's a high-low pile, and it's really, really soft to touch, but also it's bringing in the green from outside. And I just feel very inclined with this view of treetops to try to bring that in as much as possible.
The cabin itself is not too big, but it has a ton of ceiling height. If I'm coming up here for the weekend, I would love to have my bedroom space sort of separated from everything else. So why not actually use the height to our advantage, create a sort of lofted space above that can be totally private. Maybe it's only your bedroom, maybe it's very, very zen, and you're just giving a little bit more square footage.
The ceilings are so high. I'm inclined to want to loft a beautiful bedroom up there. I would love for that backdrop to be the floor to ceiling windows and just have a very simple bed and beautiful bedside tables set up against that window.
So for the second floor loft space, I used this kind of like champagne frosted colored glass at the front of the loft space. And I just thought it was like a nice way that you could kind of see into the space, but also the frosted glass offers some privacy.
I think a place like this where you're probably just going for the weekend, you can keep everything just very simple. So let's say that there's just a bed in the loft and maybe it just faces out over the living room.
I am wary of spiral staircases, so I really wanted something a little bit more substantial, but I didn't want it to take away from the space that I needed in this design. So I thought a beautiful plaster spiral staircase would kind of be that perfect medium between the two needs.
In the area between the two doors, I would love to do something that's just a little bit more sculptural than an average spiral staircase. And I think here what we could do is sort of create a ribbon effect. Imagine that your banisters are completely infilled, and in between you have sort of plaster banisters that go up.
As for the staircase, I just wanted something simple and subdued. I did like a black spiral staircase, but I didn't want it to be focal. So I extended the tile wall so you can see that the staircase is kind of hidden behind the tile wall in the kitchen.
In the original A-frame, I don't understand this kitchen. It's taking up the entire space. Instead, I would just run the kitchen along the wall and put everything that one needs centered off that one wall and not encroach upon the space any further.
I would keep the general idea of the kitchen living along this long wall here, but I would eliminate, this sort of island happening here. I think that whenever you're in a small space, you want everything to feel sort of open. Because we're eliminating some storage here for flow, why don't we put some of that up here, kind of on the wall as like an upper, and that would provide just extra space for food, for plates, for things like that.
So looking at the original kitchen, it's pretty generic. So I wanted to think of materials that kind of had like a neutral feel, that were a bit more elevated. For the countertop, I went with this really unique marble. It has some hints of beige and purple and blues. And for the cabinets and the island, I chose particle board, which is like a really inexpensive material. I was inspired by cabins from the 70s.
Everyone wants counter space to work on. So I decided that the dining table would also serve as counter space. It's a vintage Guillermin Chambron folding dining table. And that pine made me think of like a Swiss chalet.
If I'm hosting people, I want to make sure that they all feel comfortable. I want to make sure there's a ton of seats and a big table to have beautiful meals, all from the garden. So why don't we create a large table? You know, let's maybe sit about, at minimum, 8 people, right? A table in a place like this, I think should also be wood. If I am roasting a chicken and my friend spills a bottle of wine or whatever, if it's wood, that's totally fine. And I actually sort of want those moments to happen, right? They create stories.
I'd like to think of this space as having different areas for different times of the day and different activities. And I love this Green River Project game table. And this way, you don't have to do your games or your chess or your checkers or your puzzles or any of that on the dining table, but you have kind of your own sacred space.
There is this carved out area here on the right. If we think about perhaps doing floor to ceiling bookcases, for instance, in the same material, how cool would that be? The back of the bookcase would be flush with the wall on the right, and the top would go to the underside of the portion here where it flattens out.
In this case, I felt like the existing fireplace was protruding too much into this space. I was inspired by the work of Arnelle Benoit, who is a ceramicist, and she's done beautiful custom mantles. And I thought here was an opportunity to do one that just blends with the lime wash, but doesn't totally disappear because it is the meeting point in this space.
So for the fireplace, I decided actually to keep the existing fireplace. It's what grounded my inspiration, and I built the rest of the A-frame off of this existing fireplace, leaning into this natural stone.
The angle of the fireplace creates a sense of place in the living room and kind of separates the living area from the dining area and kitchen. I like that. The thing I don't love about the fireplace is that it just feels a bit fake to me. I think if we did something that was sort of tectonic in a way, that could be very cool. Perhaps we do these sort of rocky forms that are flat on top, that have a kind of rusticated edge on the face. The shape is very conducive to being open to the dining area, even though it does create a sense of separation because we're angling it.
I think a comfy sofa is so important, and using a comfy upholstered skirted sofa in this kind of angular A-frame that could veer more modern would soften it a bit. I am using this Maison-C pattern called Batsheva, and it's a really nice repeat because it's not too busy, but it adds just a really beautiful, playful, floral moment. And then I made a custom hexagonal table.
I wanted to go with bolder accents and furniture pieces, and the couch that I'm going with is the Togo sofa by Lean Rose. It's a fan favorite. I went with the mustard corduroy fabrication.
This coffee table is by Lucas Morden Udd. I sourced it on First Dibs, and I loved the hand anodized aluminum finish. I love mixing finishes in a space, and I just thought this would be a really interesting texture to bring into the space with the wood and the stone floors and the rug.
I really want to create a sort of communal sensibility. Think about you're almost at a camp, right? And you're like around the fire, or you're like around a table, and you're all having conversations and just having a good time. I think if we have a sofa, something like the Pierre Ivanovich sofa, for instance, that has these sort of angular lines creating different kind of views and different situations for seating, that could be something that's very cool.
This coffee table I love. It has kind of this like organic kidney shape. It's a really nice size. It's long. You could probably eat at it, have hors d'oeuvres, drinks with your friends. And I paired the coffee table and the sofa with our teddy chair by Pieces and this kind of custom mossy mohair color.
We're introducing a lot of modernity into this cabin. We're making it feel fresh, but I always want to still keep the sense of place. This particular table, I would love to do something that's more of a shu sugi bon wood, and that's essentially a charred wood table. Again, it sort of lends itself to that cabin aesthetic, campfire.
The chair is a really beautiful French Neapolitan classic fringe chair, and I did it in a beautiful Zac and Fox mossy green velvet. I keep seeing this space as very seasonal. So in the winter, it's really soft and cozy and inviting. But then in the summer, you're picking up on the greens and what's outside.
Because of the way that the sofa is orientated towards the fireplace, there is a sort of opening on the other side of the room, perfect for another lounge chair. Whenever you have a lounge chair that's sort of situated in a kind of corner, but you can sort of walk all the way around it, always fantastic to think of it as being more of a sculptural moment. The chair that I'm thinking of is the Benetti chair from Bonacina. It's another chair that is actually a wicker material, but the form is just really fun.
Along the wall, I put one of my favorite sofas. It's called the Dog Settee, and it's by Howe, London. And this fabric is very, very, very durable. And the whole concept behind it is that your dogs can sit there as well as you.
Next to the lounge chair, I would definitely add a sort of cocktail table. I like something like this that's a simple bronze material. Perhaps it's hammered to give more of that kind of old effect. But really the function is super important. You always want to have a table next to a chair. If you have a drink, if you have a book, you want to set it down on something.
I also added this, again, pine Guermann Chambron secretary to the room. And I thought, this is kind of a great opportunity. You can have a bar or a desk to write letters or get some work done, but I like the duality to it.
I chose the USM Holler piece, the credenza, and I did it in this kind of slate gray color. I thought like the neutral gray paired really well with these brighter furniture pieces. And it's just like a really great piece to store your linens, your servingware, etc., just to keep everything really clean and organized.
In regards to lighting, over the dining table, because we are turning it in sort of this fashion that's up against the wall, I would like to have a linear light that goes above. This particular one I'm thinking of is a Franz West design. It's actually sort of tectonic in a way with these exposed light bulbs on the end.
My favorite lighting are these pebble pendants by Anlight. Anlight's one of my favorite lighting designers, and I think the pebble collection is just striking, and it worked so well with the stone fireplace. It had like a very earthy feel, just perfect for this A-frame moment, and made the space really cozy, and the lighting from the pebble pendants is just like very warm.
I think it's always great when you have a kitchen that has uppers to integrate your lighting underneath those uppers. You really want to light up your working space. So having lights underneath your uppers is a fantastic and very easy solution.
So with an A-frame, I'm a little intimidated by lighting because even with the loft, the ceiling is high, and now we've brought in so much natural daylight that over the dining table, there should be something really beautiful and decorative that provides a nice amount of light, but it doesn't have to be the sole source. So I sourced these vintage Hans Arne Jacobsen pendants.
For the kitchen island, I'm going with a valve pendant, also by Anlight. Super clean lines, a really modern lighting piece. Nothing too loud or bold, but I love the shape.
So the chandelier over the living area is by Martin de Silure. It's called the sundial chandelier, and that's because it is made up of all of these individual discs, and the discs are actually lit on top, and they shine up, and they sort of create a sort of sundial effect from the central post. I think it's important to do a sort of dramatic moment like this in the living area because entertaining is so critical to the idea of this weekend retreat. And I'm also just imagining, pulling up at night, from the city when I'm driving in. I've put that light on, my phone so I can turn it on, and that's really glowing the house when I'm coming into the driveway.
I've really entered the world of pine, and I loved these Swedish all wood with paper shade sconces. I just thought those were beautiful, and I can imagine that the light would be very, very warm that they would give off. So I went the full length of the A-frame. I'm relying on these added layers to create the overall lighting together.
I love offering different light options to have ambient lighting, especially in the evening. And this is Noguchi floor lamp, another classic. One of my other favorite lighting designers. I feel like you can't go wrong with anything Noguchi. The paper casts just like a really beautiful glow.
Whenever you have a seating group like this, I always recommend having reading lamps next to your seat. These particular lamps that I'm thinking of, they're actually the Dauphine light, sold at Floss, and they're adjustable, and they're perfect perfect for, curling up, reading a book, just setting a little bit of mood too.
With the A-frame, you don't have a lot of wall space to go crazy with artwork, but I did want something really beautiful and textured and warm to kind of serve as some sort of visual on the wall opposite the kitchen where the dining table is. And I love this Egyptian tapestry. It picks up on the colors that I have inside. And I think a tapestry too for sound and warmth is a really cozy addition.
The planter are the column planters by pieces, and we designed them so they're stackable. I did all 3 colors that the column is offered in, and I just thought like the planter on its own is almost like a nice art piece.
I think that in most spaces, they always benefit from having plant life. They provide a sense of mystery. If you have something that's kind of tall, it creates a sort of spatial moment. I like to mix my plants. I love to have a big palm tree. I love to have smaller ferns.
Since there isn't a lot of art space, my partner in Maison-C is an artist and she does murals. Her name is Costanza Teodoli-Braschi. And so I thought it would be fun to have her do kind of like a vine up the mantle, again bringing in the green from outside and having this kind of be a little bit more of a magical little touch to this mantle.
The books and objects are always very important in a house. I'm imagining there's a plethora of coffee table books and design books and art books and things that you maybe have no idea that you have an interest in and that you're visiting for the weekend, and you pull something out and you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm gonna sit down and read about it.
I really love this A-frame. I think it's a nice mix of bringing nature inside, and it's blending in a lot of modern and clean lines.
I am very happy with it. It mixes all the textures and colors and creates a really beautiful environment.
In the end, I really love this design. You have a beautiful effect that every morning when you wake up, the whole house kind of glows. I think it's a really perfect retreat, and I could just imagine spending probably a little bit too much time here. Wow.
Oh my God.
Okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
We are all so different.
What is that? What is the ribbed glass?
So it's actually a polycarbonate insulated glass.
Oh,
So
cool.
kind of like Stephen Hall, some of like the Acne stores you might see, they
Yeah.
have this material.
It's really eye-catching.
Yeah, and I love how you actually also sort of went a bit more modern too.
I love that citron and that, it's such a pretty,
Yeah,
those
the
colors
yellows
are
and the
great.
greens work so well together.
So it was like, these like natural colors juxtaposed with like brighter colors to kind of feel like an art gallery.
That's so cool.
You also did kind of the same thing with like a kind of wood with some of the greens coming through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kept thinking this could be upstate or even in Europe, like a little chalet, and bringing the outdoors in was really important.
I love that sort of forced perspective that you created too by keeping the walls clad in wood, but you blew out that back wall.
Exactly. I really wanted the focal point to be the view and bringing that in as much as possible.
I would totally live in either of these. I think they're both very soothing. Just this fantasy world that I would love to spend time in.
I would love to just honestly make a meal in your kitchen. It looks so nice and just really cozy. I love the materiality. I can just see myself cooking a nice meal for all my friends. I don't cook in the city, but when I go upstate or when I go somewhere like a cabin like this, all the skills come out and I just want to show off. In yours, I'm just obsessed with the whole fireplace moment. I really want to curl up with a book and just doze off and not have a care in the world.
It's so zen.
Yeah, so zen.
I could easily dive into either one of these settings. This is this warm, modern, sexy vibe. And then I agree, I am terrible about cooking and doing much in the city, but when I go upstate and escape, that is exactly the kind of place I would love to cook and again, entertain and just chill out. It's very happy. Those colors are really happy.
Yeah, I feel good looking at this.